especially if you're starting out, is I test what I'm doing on here so that I know how wet the my brush is and how saturated of a color I have in my brush.
Welcome to Wendy Huang. Wendy, we met you on Watercolor Live last week. You were doing some demonstrations, and I was so impressed that I wanted to have you on the show for everybody else.
Eric, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited about today.
What are you going to do?
I'm doing a demo today, and it's going to be on color theory. You know how much I love color theory from the other demos. And I'm going to apply this concept to painting. Now, I am using watercolor, but these concepts can really apply to any painting medium.
You know, that's something we all have trouble with. I think I had, when I first started painting, somebody was throwing out terms about warm and cool colors, and I was confused. They were throwing out methods of, you know, making colors vibrate, and I was confused. They were throwing out all kinds of things about, you know, graying down chroma and everything. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. Let's get right into it.
Great.
All right.
Okay. So I'm gonna rotate my camera around to sort of show you, but I just want to quickly show you this is a little grid that I have of color that I'm going to be using red and green today. And let me switch over to my camera here.
Yeah, while you're doing that, let me just mention to everybody, my name is Eric Rhodes. I'm the publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazine, and this is day number 316. We have prizes in comments, and so if you make comments, we will randomly grab people for prizes. We have the winner of yesterday's prize is Maji. I'm going to put it on the screen because I can't pronounce it. Konrad Studerek from Poland. So congratulations, you're getting a subscription to Plein Air magazine, digital subscription. And today's prize will be the Plein Air apron, which is a great apron. And so all you got to do is tell us where you're from, make your comments about where you're from, where you're watching from. That's very helpful for us. And now back to Wennie. All right, Wennie.
Okay. So I'm just going to show you, I'm not going to be able to fit in all the steps in real time because this does take time to make, but I do want to show you, I'm doing a still life, very simple still life here, an apple, a little tea canister, and actually apple cider vinegar, so some glass. And I'm using, this is permanent red medium, and also Viridian green. This is in actually the Royal Talons Van Gogh line, which is it's a simple line. I use it for my demos because it's got a great price point. It's easy for beginners to handle because the viscosity between colors is very similar, and so I like that. And what I'm doing now, I'm going to do a slightly closer and abbreviated concept of this, but basically in this I'm looking at this top row here shows glazing, and glazing is really, I think, in watercolor one of the most magical things you can do it in oil, and an example of that would be Vermeer used glazing in his one of my favorite painters in oil painting, and so it's a thin glaze, a thin layer of one color that's laid down first. That is typically not the local color. Local color is like, you know, if a dress is blue, then you're mixing blue. So instead, what Vermeer would do is he would lay down an orange, and then or a burnt sienna, and then he'd go in later on top with the local color, and it creates a wonderful sense of space. Like I think of it as Jello, you know, layers of Jello. So I did this in this sort of quick drawing in colored pencil, and I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do. So I am going to be putting the red first, and the reason is because the red in this case is a more opaque color, and so I'm going to be layering the more transparent color over that.
So when you use terms like opaque, it's probably good to explain what they mean because some people might not know.
And it means different. It's a little bit different in different media, but in general, what it means is, especially in a media where you are painting in a glazing method, the idea is that the color of the surface comes back on top of comes back to your eye through the color. Now, when it's opaque, because of the kind of pigment and how it's broken down, what's happening is the light's coming down and it's actually hitting the pigment particles, and it's bouncing back from the surface to your eye. However, when you're using a transparent color, which is like Viridian, what happens is, because of the nature of the pigment, instead of the light hitting the pigment particles, it's actually going through the pigment particles, and what you're seeing is the paper coming through. Now,
so it's like stained glass.
It is. Yeah, that's a great analogy. It is like stained glass. And, if you thin, here's I'm adding water to this red here, and which is more of an opaque color. And you could see that it does thin down. It's not like an opaque color is, if you thin it, it's going to be more transparent.
Yeah, that would be less true with oil paint than it would be with watercolor, though.
Exactly. Yes, that's right. So in general, all colors in watercolor are transparent compared to oil. Now, what I'm doing here is I have a test card, and what I use with this test card, this is very important, especially if you're starting out, is I test what I'm doing on here so that I know how wet the my brush is and how saturated of a color I have in my brush. And so I'm going to paint this first one. The first one is going to be like at the maximum saturation. And just so you know, I have my my block. I'm painting on Arches, 140-pound cold press, and my favorite, many watercolors' favorite. And you can see as I'm going over it, look at how you can see the green colored pencil through the opaque, saturated square of red. Right? So that pretty much proves you can see through it, even though it's opaque, even though I'm painting it at I wouldn't say this is maximum saturation, but probably like 80–90%. So the point here, and what I've done here, I have 5 here, but you can see that like on the end, this is white. And I call these different gradations. This is dark, so D for dark, medium, light, and pale. And that's just what I've named it. It's not anything technical. But the idea is that these are different gradations, and to be able to achieve a pale, I think, some people paint pale all the time, but it's achieve these gradations in regular jumps. Now, I might not be able to do this, but I'm going to try. And one of the things that's going to help me get those gradations is to actually use this test card. So this is going to be the next gradation. You can see it's a little more transparent than this one. And the more water you have in your brush, the lighter the watercolor is going to dry. So the wetter you're painting, the more you need to anticipate that the drying is going to be more dramatic, the color once it's dry.
Winnie, there are people who tuned in late who didn't hear you. So you said they asked a question about what material did you say was good for beginning artists? And you named a brand?
Yes, I love a Royal Talents brand. Van Gogh watercolors is the brand that I use. I've been using this brand for over 30 years teaching and doing my own work. And it's affordable. It's a great price point. And it's also easy to handle. You don't have, that's the main thing. You're not struggling with the paint, having different colors, doing different things. They all kind of have a very similar viscosity. It's the one I recommend to my students. I teach at the 92nd Street Y, and I recommend this brand to them.
Well, hello from Brazil, from a couple people from India, from South Africa. Welcome. We have people all over the world watching Winnie, and it's really exciting. Yesterday, I got a text message or an email or I guess an instant message or something from somebody. And they said, I tuned in because I happened to follow a particular artist that was on your show yesterday. And I didn't know that you'd been on. And so she wanted to know where she could find all the past broadcasts, and they're all on YouTube, all 316 days times 2, because we do a 3 o'clock and a 12 noon. It's different content. So if you guys want to find it, that's where you'll find it.
I love that you have those videos available. I think that it's such a wonderful teaching tool, and I'm definitely going to be referring my students to that. I think it's so helpful for them to see how demos are done live. So what I'm doing right now is, because I'm glazing, I need to let these dry completely. So I need to let them, I didn't paint them very wet. You can see that I'm painting on a slant, actually. You can see the setup here, and I'm painting it probably at 45-degree slant. The reason, and I prefer to paint at an angle and to have it sort of propped upright a bit anyway, and that's because I can tell if there's too much water, that it's going to beat up at the bottom of these washes.
Okay, all right.
And so that's why. Okay, so while I'm waiting for that to dry, because I need to let it dry all the way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this other technique that is also, again, color theory. I'm using the same colors, but I'll show you how you can like shift a color, which is a lot of fun. I'm doing an abbreviated version here, and so I'm going to actually start out with the red, and again, I want to do this like I want to add the red, and I'm going to do my test card here, very important, at about, I would say, like 50% or less, and that the reason is because I want to leave room for the green to come in. I joke around with my students a lot. Like I tell them, think about the paper as a party room. And you're like the host. So you're like, you're bringing in these colors that are your guests, and you're bringing them into the room, and you're going to be, sorry about that. Okay. So see how I'm dropping in the color just with the tip of my brush, and that's creating this change that happens in the color. And I think of this as like mingling. In other words, like you're letting the colors sort of mingle together on their own, and wet on wet, right? So I'm going to do another one here, and very similar dilution of the red in this one. And this is like, I have students do this exercise in the beginning. They haven't been painting for a while. I'll have them sort of do this exercise. So in this one now, I'm going to be dropping in the green, but less, and slightly more diluted. So again, and then again, a little bit more on this side. So this is like, to really, I think of it as like, for anyone that's ever like done piano lessons or music lessons, it's like doing your octaves, it's like doing your scales, Now, what you can see here is that this is soft. In other words, the way that the colors are mingling or mixing is a soft way to switch the color. And when you back far away, you'll see that the colors read, it's almost like a Syrah or something, right? So they'll read sort of differently. Now, in this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the green. And I have a different brush here painting green, so to keep the color sort of clean. All right, and then I'm going to drop in the red. And it's going to be different depending on what color is the field and what color is the, the color you're dropping in, which one's the host. This one, again, a little more diluted. All right, and then I'm going to use also more diluted red.
Great trick.
Yeah, and it's also just this is like if you're working wet on wet, it's a great way to, you can see this almost turning a little gray, and it's very subtle. So
somebody asked, by the way, where do you get your egg carton watercolor cups? I have a guess, but I want to know what you say.
Oh my God, everybody loves those. It's like hilarious. It cracks me up. I get them, I think I bought mine originally at Anthropology. It's this sort of home goods, clothing store. And they have these like quirky little ceramics and things. And I think originally I bought mine there. But you can find very similar stuff online now. If you just, I think on Amazon, if you type in deviled egg ceramic or porcelain tray,
Oh, that's a good idea. Devil's
yeah,
egg
you're
tray.
gonna find it.
You could
Yeah.
do a round one too. So I went to Trader Joe's the other day and I bought some moji, the ice cream.
Oh, yeah.
And
I love
after consuming the entire box, I realized it's a tray just like that of white plastic, and it's perfect for watercolor.
Oh,
Looks exactly like that, and it's free, and you get moji with it.
oh my gosh, that's great. Where did you get this? At Whole Foods? Where did you
Trader
go?
Joe's.
Trader Joe's. Love Trader Joe's. That's very cool.
Yeah.
So I am going to, so right now, so I did that just to sort of show you another technique. I call it mingling, but I think there's a lot of different terms, wet into wet, whatever it is, charging. So these are dry now. And so I actually go and I touch them and they're nice and dry. So now I'm going to paint the green on top. This is Viridian green now on top of the permanent red medium. I drew some little squares here because I'm going to be showing you another thing which is more commonly known as mixing. And again, I want to paint the most saturated version of the green, but not at 100%. Again, more like 80%. So when I do this, though, I'm going to go into the green box, and you'll see the sort of amazing thing that happens is in glazing, that layer underneath of the red was completely dry. So if you've got the right paper, something that has good sizing on it, like Arches, you're going to be able to do the glazing. And you can see that the color, when I painted over the red, it wasn't the green. It was, you're seeing through the layer of the red. I just think that's like a very magical sensation.
Very magical.
Yeah, and it's great because then you understand also that if you want to make red dark, you're trying to get the shadow of a red barn or whatever it is, darker tree, you could put red first, right, where the shadow is, and then you paint over the whole thing green, and it makes a very sort of luminous effect. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lighten the green a little bit, so I get the next sort of medium green. Right, and this is for glazing, so that's maybe a little on the light side. So I'm gonna add a little bit more pigment, and I'm mixing on the side, then I'm testing on my paper to make sure. And the thing about the transparent colors, they really, a little bit of water does a lot. So I think this is pretty good. So I'm gonna try this. Might be a little on the dark side.
I think that test strip is a great idea.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be able to paint well without one.
People are telling me to get back on the treadmill because I talked about eating a box of moji. I was on the treadmill this morning. Yes, thank you very much. Actually, not the treadmill, the elliptical. If you guys are enjoying her, please give a thumbs up or a heart, and please share it. Just go ahead and hit the share button so your friends can see it, because this is very valuable, whether you're an oil painter or a watercolorist or whatever. Hello, Tel Aviv, Israel. Somebody said they get a deviled eggs holder or a egg holder at the camping supply store that works.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I think it's a pretty, it's like a little pop themed kind of a, I don't think it's necessarily something they made thinking it was going to be great for watercolor, but you could just paint on a white dish. A white porcelain dish. So
why is porcelain important?
Doesn't have to be porcelain, just white. I think just white. Oh, it doesn't beat up. So like versus plastic.
Oh, I see. It doesn't beat up. Cheap Joe's had something they were offering. They had a porcelain palette they were talking about the other day. Hello, Hungry.
So I'm just going to show you really quick, and then I'm going to get to painting the apple. So this is, again, I finished the glazing, so you can see the different color. That color like in between is very interesting, and how if you want to get an olive green, right? Again, if you add a little, this shows you if you paint red underneath, let it dry, or add a little touch of red to the green, you're going to make it more olive. This is a cool green. The Viridian is closer to, leans a little towards the blue.
Yeah.
And And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do the regular thing. I'm going to be mixing. And so I'm going to actually mix a little bit on this kind of, I usually use this kind of a tray for, it's like a,
it's called a baker's tray.
It is. Yeah. And it's, I always think of it as like a butcher's tray.
Oh, butcher's tray. That's right. Butcher's tray.
It's a little macabre, but like the thinking, I mean, it's the idea that the meat goes in the middle and the blood drains around the edges. But you know, the blood that drains around the edges in watercolor, I call that gutter color. So it goes to the gutter, and it's fabulous to paint with. It's like a mix of colors. So what I'm doing right now is I'm mixing the two colors together. So I'm actually mixing, like physically mixing the red and dropping in a little bit of green. And I'm trying to get a color that not necessarily is that, but is not more red or more green. And so it's
a neutral, really. It's
a neutral, right? The neutral that I would get with this combination. So I'm going to start with this. And so in this exercise here, and again, I'm doing an abbreviated version, is I'm trying to, first of all, get a neutral, discerning between the two colors with my eye so that it's hopefully neither more red nor more green. And then when I move to the left, I'm going to be, so when I paint this one, I'm going to add a drop of red to it. And when I add a drop of red to that mixture and I paint it, it is going to be a little bit warmer. Now, how much you do and how much red you add and how quickly you progress towards, or you can see that it's a slightly warmer neutral. Now I'm going to add another drop. And when I do that, and again, you know, I could do a test card. When I do that, again, it goes even more red.
Nice.
Yeah. So
You're
this is like,
yeah,
it's a subtle way to kind of like go from, you know, thinking about the neutral and just thinking about these steps going in that direction. Now, if I add a green, it's going to go in the other direction. So I'm adding green to, I'm going to now. And so you can see that it goes a little bit cooler. Again, add a little bit more green. And sometimes, you know, you end up having to add a little water because you want to, you know, we don't want it necessarily to go darker. I'm just touching my brush to, like, you know, the tip of the, just to the tip of my, you know, big sort of squeezed out amount of watercolor that I squeezed out, the Viridian green. And, you know, you can, any one of these you can pull down, but you can see that gentle color shift, you know, and sometimes I have students do what I did here at the bottom here. I'm not going to do this, but I had them also add a little bit of drop of water so they can also see the tints, because sometimes it's easier in a mix. The mix text tends to get a little thicker and it's easier to see the color when you've added a little water to it. You can see and pull out and see what that is. In fact, if you know, depending on the amount of room you have. I mean, I think these exercises are so helpful. If I just add more and more water, it's interesting to sort of see what pulls out and what that color pulls out into. Of course, this depends a little bit like what's in your brush, you know, but this kind of exercise where you're adding and then, you know, the water's coming down, of course, because I have this at a tilt. I think that's kind of interesting. Now what you see is basically the full range of what's possible between these two colors. And again, this applies to any painting medium. So you could apply this to, you know, to acrylic or to gouache or to oil. You know, of course, the result sort of depends on the binder and whatnot. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look over, I'm going to, you know, apply this to the still life here, just as a quick study, and talk a little bit about where I might apply it. Now, I always like to do this kind of thing where I brought a knife and I'm just going to cut into my apple here.
My son would be asking what kind of knife, because he works for Cutco and he sells knives.
Oh, I know Cutco. This is a knife. I just think a knife from my mom. I think it's like Henkel's.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll
You're making me salivate.
I
Looks
see
good.
that juicy apple, right? And so what's really interesting, you see the apple, and then you also see, the slice of apple, right? And so using that color combination to paint, and I'm going to see, I might just place this here because I think there's more interesting shadows without the plate. So I'm going to move that aside. It might bleed a little bit. So I've got the apple and I've got the slice of apple, and I like to sort of angle them so there's like one side's catching a little bit of the light coming in on this side, and there's a little bit of shadow here, and there's a little bit of cast shadow. So I'm going to focus on that. I might not get everything in. And
hello, Egypt. Welcome, Mustafa. Hello, okay. Another one from India. Thank you, India, for coming. Welcome.
It's great to have these people tune in. So I'm going to do, I actually don't, I typically do not draw with a pencil when I paint, because I just really like to draw with a brush. So I'm using.
What kind of brush are you using?
It's a Raphael, extra pointed round, number 8.
Hello, Cumbria, United Kingdom. Hello, Alaska.
So here I'm drawing the sort of slice, the side of the slice, and I'm actually looking at it, and you can see that I have a broken edge, so I don't do a continuous edge because that it'll look a little outliney. And
it's boring.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do is, so the first thing is this part, and this is just to sort of get an idea of where things are. I can make it a little more diluted on this side, and so it's a little bit more subtle.
Okay.
But basically, I'm painting the slice that you see over here. I'll turn this over a little bit so you can see a little bit more of the still life.
Yeah, we can see it. Hello, Spain.
And I don't have a yellow. No, I don't have a yellow. So like sometimes I'll judge. Like first of all, in this area here, I'm going to actually start with a green. I know that seems weird because the apple is red, but I'm going to start with a green. Now, when I put this first wash out, it doesn't have to be a flat wash, but I'm just going to put some green here. First of all, it's in shadow, so it has to have some cool. It can't be that bright red. So
now you're really going to freak us all out.
And this is something where I can let it dry and then glaze. Now, there's a lot of different ways to paint this. I mean, you can, but it's great to sort of use the still life as sort of like a gym for thinking about different ways to paint things. Now, I'm going to actually start with, if I look at the green, it is closer probably to the red. It's warm on most of it. But I'm going to start with a very, very pale wash of green. And remember, I have this test card to make sure that I know what's I know what's in my brush. Now I'm going to paint this sort of part of the little bit of part of the skin sticking out there. And you can see it's this is like the pale, right? The pale green. Where it's greener, I can paint it greener. But I know that I'm going to be laying some red on top of this. Okay. And it's not going to turn yellow, not with these two colors in combination. Here, I'm going to paint a little bit more, a little stronger.
Okay.
With the green, because this part is a little bit more shade on it. So and it's okay with that. Even when you're glazing that first layer, you can make it a little bit more. And here's a little. I'm using the side of the brush to pick up some of the texture of the paper.
Okay. Hello, Latvia.
Now,
we, by the way, have prizes. Tell us where you're watching from. Today we're giving away a plein air apron, plein air magazine apron. Be sure to tell us. We also have a great video today at 3 o'clock, which is coming up. And every day at 3 o'clock. Today you're going to get the great Joanne Manji. She's going to give a tutorial on the fine art of dog portraits. That's at 3 o'clock today. You'll get to see Sam, the wonder dog. That's Allie's dog.
Oh, I know Joanne.
Everybody knows Joanne. Joanne makes sure of it. We love Joanne.
Joanne's great. She's also a Royal Town's art ambassador. That's how I know her. Yeah, she's terrific. She's really fun at happy hour.
Yeah. Royal Town's great. Kyle is great. What a wonderful group of people. They do so much for the art community. Fabulous folks.
It's great. So I just want to show you, I'm painting this apple a little bit differently because, you know, again, it's not like there's a single way to paint anything, but I just want to show you here's basically a mix. So this is a mix. So I'm separating the red and the green here, right? But here I'm doing a mix of the colors. And so they've mixed in my brush a little bit. And so it's turning out like a little on the, you know, on the brown side from the mixing. And I'm doing this because I want to show you, you know, the difference that you're going to get between, you know, one technique and the other, which is interesting, you know, just sort of fun to know. This is the inside of the apple. And again, I can, you know, put in a little touch of this or that, just to make it sort of bleed and feel juicy. Create little emergencies for myself. And then around the outside of that apple, so this is glazing. I'm waiting for this to dry. On this side, you can do mingling also. So mingling might be, for example, I'm going to be, this is mixed, right? But it's wet. So if I'm doing mingling, I might paint with the red. If I stop talking, it's just because I'm thinking about something visually. But
you're allowed to paint. You don't have to talk at all times.
Okay.
I won't. I promise not to scold you.
You know what? I feel my teenage son nodding in the back when you say that, Eric. In agreement.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that from my kids. Dad, just make it quiet once in a while.
Yeah.
What age is your son?
He is 18.
Oh boy, same age as mine. I have three of them that are 18.
Oh my gosh! Wow, an interesting moment, you know, time, right? Especially now, the poor people, poor kids, and young people. I feel very sorry for in this whole pandemic.
Yeah, my kids are going to college on Zoom. At least two of them are.
Wow. Yeah, he's my son's all remote also.
And where's home for you?
I'm coming in from Brooklyn.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I've lived here I'm from New York State. So I was born in New York State. My parents came from Taiwan in the 60s.
All right.
And I was born here. My brothers were born here also. So we've actually never been to Asia.
We do a fabulous event in upstate New York in the summertime in June. It's called the Publishers Invitational. And it's about, this year it'll be more because it's the 10-year anniversary, but it's normally about 100, 120 people. And we paint the Adirondacks together for a week. We stay on a local college. We eat together. We drink together. We do music together. We have a lot of fun. We paint portraits at night. So you should come up.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, that sounds fabulous.
A lot of watercolorists come. Do you do any plein air work?
I do. Yes, I love plein air. I do plein air work for sure. Okay. Yeah. What I'm doing now is I'm dropping in the color. So this is mingling. What I did here, in other words. So I'm dropping in. I can drop in, and what's really great is as long as you sort of keep it sort of wet, this area. So sometimes I might go in with a little bit of water. I can drop in with either color. Sometimes what I'm doing is I might be charging it. So something got a little bit too light, and I'm noticing that. So I can go in and kind of with the tip of my brush, just kind of poke in a little.
I love these techniques because they really give a lot of texture and feel that you don't normally get from regular brush strokes.
Yes, right. There's such a variety. I mean, that's what I love about this medium. It's also like it sometimes can be, you know, difficult to control, especially plein air. Plein air, it's like, you know, time of day is going to affect it. The weather's going to affect like everything. But I like that challenge of just like seeing what happens. You know, here again, I'm going to pull this bead down, and sometimes again I like to sort of hit it with a strong bit of color there and see what happens. So it is really a wonderful. This is a wonderful medium to bring outdoors. I mean, it's why I started painting in watercolor.
Well, I'm practicing now after Watercolor Live. I'm very excited.
Oh, good.
Hello again, another Latvia, and hello again from Netherlands. See, when you guys hit the share button, then all of a sudden your friends see it and they join in, and then they're getting to learn too. So hello, Italy.
Yeah, this is
Linda Marie is making Linda Marie is making cooking right now. She just put her food in the oven. Meatloaf and candied yams. That doesn't sound like an Italian meal. It sounds like an American meal. I love the fact that we have so many people from around the world tuning in. I think that's very cool.
So here I'm going to do a little bit of a glaze, maybe slightly wet still, of the green, right? Just to distinguish it from this side that is a little bit warmer. And I'm going to put a slight bit. Now remember, I don't have any yellow, so I'm not painting with the local color. I'm painting with these two complementary colors, and you know, neither of them really appear in the still life at all. In other words, as a color, as a straight color. Yeah. You know, and so we run into this a lot, like plein air, where we don't feel like we have the color that we see. I'm going to do this other one now. So I'm going to start with the green in the shadow, and I'm going to just do a little shadow here, and I'll show you. This is going to be painted. I want to try to keep it sort of moist.
Very convincing, though.
Yeah, there's something just very it keeps I think knowing these techniques and just practicing them, it keeps your watercolor luminous. It just makes you aware that you're not, and you're also not just always painting the same way. You can, or even painting the same way within one watercolor, that you have a lot of different options. And I think it also is exciting to not always know how the colors are gonna, you know, come out.
It keeps it interesting.
Yes. Yeah. So here I'm just adding, I'm going to be dropping in the red. So sometimes I'm painting with them, you know, by themselves. And then after I drop in the red, I can still go in and drop in more green and shift it again. So the color is, when it's wet, it's fluid. And even when it's dry, you can glaze and you can shift that color.
You're getting that reflected light in there, though. That's nice.
Yeah, yeah. So it's subtle. It's allowing you know, watch on that Watercolor Live. I have to say the Joseph Zabukvik, his demo was phenomenal. and in, you know, what he said, everything he said, actually all of the you know, Andy Evenson and all of them were amazing. But what I love about his you know, what he said about listening to the watercolor, that really resonated with me. You know, sort of watching it and allowing it to do what it wants. So what I'm going to do here is, with this little bit, I'm going to be adding the red and as a glaze. And I'm just going to wash out my brush here because it's got a little dirty. And I'm going to be adding the red as a glaze over the green. So, and you can see that it comes out differently. Now, when you do the glaze, it can't be too wet, or it's going to pick up that color underneath. But I love that you can see the green coming through the red. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the reverse for this shadow. So this shadow on the bottom, I'm going to add, so this I added the green first and then added the red. Here I'm going to add the red first and then add the green. So it's just, you know, my dad's a math teacher, so I think all these little like experiments and little formulas, like, you know, I'm sort of just interested in how you can take a formula and it can sort of apply to a broad range of things in, you know, in pigments, in art. That fascinates me.
I love it.
So, so like you do it one way and then you do it another way. You try it this way and then you try another way. It's like a math proof. But,
Thumbs up
more
and
fun.
applause, Wennie. This is absolutely fabulous. You are just blowing everybody away. They love this.
It's fun. It's so much. I hope you guys try it. That's the most important thing, like just to try it, because it is so much fun to, and I think if you do these exercises too, you really achieve an understanding for the medium, which I think, again, is why we're doing it. There's something about this medium. It calls to us. It speaks to us. We wanna listen to it. It's not about forcing it to do anything. It is about understanding it and helping it along. And so it's just, and I painted. I went to art school and I painted in all the other mediums, and they're all wonderful. Every single one has something to offer. This one spoke to me in a way that
you're teaching us something though that I think is a great lesson I never really thought about. First off, I tell students oftentimes start out with the primaries, just the 3 colors in white, just to learn, because I think that's a great way to learn and get harmony, because color is so difficult. Actually, I start them out with the values, but I've never thought to say, okay, just take 2 complementary colors and don't use anything but those 2 complementary colors. And I think it really forces you to really be creative and try new things. That's a great approach.
Yeah,
you can do so much with just those 2.
I credit my Pratt Institute education.
It's a great school.
We did a lot of color. This is where I learned about color, really. Yeah.
Well, wasn't Albers at Pratt?
I don't know if
I thought Joseph Albers taught at Pratt at one time.
He maybe, not when I was there, but I think he did teach a number of the teachers that I had.
Yeah, he probably, I think he did. Well, he was gone before you got it. I think he passed away.
He may have, and then I'm thinking, then eventually Yale. But I think a lot of the teachers that I had him at Yale. And then,
maybe that's it. Yeah, we'll ask Charlie Hunter. Charlie Hunter went to Yale. He'll know.
Yeah, and so he was very influential, I think, in the foundation program at Pratt for very influential in terms of his exercises and
everybody should have his books on color. Joseph Albers.
There's also the Albers Institute does these workshops. You can take these workshops from, I guess, like they're trained in his method. The thing about it though that's a little different is what we did with Albers exercises was with dyed paper, but it's really applying the idea of that exercise though to pigment. So and that's what this is sort of about. Which is again a lot of fun, lot of discovery in it. Now I'm just like mixing. So again, I'm trying to sort of use, in this area I've done glazing. I've done some mingling in this side area. You can see what happens with that. And now I'm just going to be mixing to get, like, say, the stem, right? So that's just like going to be like strong mixed color. Sometimes I kind of put in like a dark mark like that. Then I take my brush and just kind of add a little water so it gets a little fluid and doesn't look like it's just sort of flat. And that's the thing with watercolor. There has to be some flow at some point. Too much flow, you lose control of the medium, right? And not enough flow, it ends up being stiff and looks like a gouache or something else. I mean, not that you can't work this way. Gouache is also a beautiful medium, but not to put down that medium, because I love gouache also.
I love them all.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm with you.
I don't know if there's enough time in a lifetime to get good at them all, but it's fun.
Yeah.
And you're using Van Gogh paints by Royal Talons, and you're using a Raphael brush. And
Raphael, extra pointed round. This one's on the, so the Arches paper is pricey, and the Raphael brush is also pricey. It's
what a great tool though.
But I love it. No, I feel like I have to know where this brush is at all times. I have some extras just in case. But you can do this exercise with any brush, and I mean, it's just I'm very much identifying. I think I for many years painted with other kinds of brushes, and I really saved up for this, and it was something that I treated myself to when I
Nice.
hit 40, so. Okay, so again, so this is, you can see like all the different varieties of ways that you can, use that sort of color theory. Now, like, for example, if this is too, I mean, I kind of like the way it is, but if you feel like you need to add a little bit more to that, you can glaze it with just a pure red. Now, just to sort of up that level, now that it's dry. And so I'll go to my test card, make sure that I have some dilution that is going to be not too strong and not too weak and especially not too wet. And then I can add a little bit more heft to that side. And you can see a lot of times I'm just painting with the tip. I'm really, this is why I encourage drawing with the brush, because when you draw with the brush, you really get to understand what the brush can do.
It's very delicate and very beautiful. Thumbs up and applause. You are doing great.
Great. And I'm just gonna finish off with there's a little darkness here, so and sometimes I just like to put in a little, like, little bit of the tip and let things sort of bleed a little bit. So I'm not illustrating the apple, I'm just sort of suggesting.
Right.
Somebody
asked to repeat the book. It's Joseph Albers. He has books on color. I'm not sure the names of the books off the top of my head. And then she's using Van Gogh paints, Arches watercolor paper, and a Raphael brush. And Van Gogh is from Royal Talents. Elaine is asking, does she have a streamlined video? Not yet.
Somebody's looking out for me. So again,
I'm thinking we need to talk.
I'm happy to do more, and I'm happy to share this. If it's helpful for people, it keeps you painting and keeps you interested, I think it's great. I never get tired of it. There's always more to learn. With color theory, there's always more. There are always more colors to experiment with, see what they do. So it's very very exciting for me to.
No one would ever look at those paintings and not say, "Oh, there's no yellow in that apple." I mean, that it's very convincing. It's very beautiful. It just proves the point that you don't have to put everything literal.
Right. Yeah. And it's just the variety of different ways that the colors can, work together, I think is very exciting. Having, playing around with the shadow, doing this and doing that, but also just like, understanding the medium, listening to it. And, I feel like these exercises, like, again, doing scales on the piano, or you're doing your octaves, it's like Bach, so it's timeless. They're timeless exercises.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm happy with that. Again, there could be, like, if I were putting in that fabric in the back, I did a dark mixture of the two, and I go a little bit more on the green side of that mixture, I could put in something in the back that is a little bit cooler and even very dramatic. This isn't what's back there, but like if I were making something, wanted to highlight that edge of the apple. That negative shape, I think, is so key.
Yeah. Well, it looks like the edge of a table. It's really wonderful.
Right. Just kind of highlights. So, and again, this is like starting, this dry brush. So this is, wonderful, very direct kind of painting.
I love this.
Yeah, and then shifting the color, adding that sort of edge here. And so this being right up against that apple is also gonna, create some interesting sensation. I can add another sort of color in there.
Do you use tube paint or pans of paint?
I prefer tubes, but when I'm doing if I'm doing plein air though, a lot of times I will go out with pans in a little kit or something.
I got the greatest little kit that Elaine Miller gave me. It's called a whiskey kit. It's very small. It's about 4 inches square, and it's got little silver bottles and pallets and collapsible cups. She got it at Cheap Joe Miller's, and it's the coolest thing. As a matter of fact, I should show it. I'll show it before we go.
I listened to Cheap Joe's story, and I loved it.
Yeah, he's a sweet man. He called me during the event, and we got to know each other a little bit. It was fun.
Yes, it was great. I loved that was really wonderful. I enjoyed Watercolor Live so much. I can't tell you, Eric. I've never, been, and it was my first time, and I couldn't believe how engaging it was. The chat box on the side was insane.
It was the largest largest art conference in history. It was pretty cool. 40 countries.
Wow.
Hello, Sweden. Welcome. It's really fabulous.
So it's fun. I mean, again, it's just here it's dry, and I'm just kind of putting in a little bit of color there so that it resonates. But just having these bleed out. But again, it's fun because it's just 2 colors. So there's something very sort of simple about it. Yeah.
Okay, Winnie, I'd like for you to come back on camera.
Okay, great.
All right. And yes, good.
Great.
Hi, everybody. Hi, this is Wennie. You haven't seen her face if you tuned in late. Wennie Huang. And Winnie, you're in your studio. Maybe you could just, I don't know what camera situation is, but we would love to see some of your artwork and maybe see your studio if you got just a minute.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well,
I know it's a mess.
It is a mess. So I will show you around a little bit. So this is my desk. Let me maybe I'll just do this. I'll just rotate.
Yeah, okay.
A little bit. So,
by the way, I loved when you did the color charts on Watercolor Live. That was really a
color wheels and color charts. Yeah, the Albers. This is so. This just looks out. I'm in Brooklyn. I call it off Park Slope. So I'm like 10 stops into Brooklyn from Manhattan, and then I do a lot of pastels. So I also teach pastel at the Pastel Society, and so I have examples up so I can sort of inspire students and pull some of them down sometimes to show. I teach 3, believe it or not, a 3-dimensional design model making class at Parsons. That's what I teach.
Oh, wow.
There's a fashion studio that I'm teaching right now, and they had to make jewelry out of paper, a replica of actual jewelry, and then develop their own. So it's a lot of different kinds of things. And yeah, I have these other, and I'm working on this series of jars. This is, if you've seen the work of Janet Fish, she does all these jars. So I started doing these jars sort of in homage of hers, but in pastel. And those are kind of fun.
Nice.
I love glass. Yeah.
So do you make your living as a teacher?
Yeah, I teach, believe it or not, anywhere between 11 to 15 classes a semester at 4 to 5 different places.
At 4 to 5 different places?
You can really only do it in New York, I think. Yeah.
Well, you have a terrific work ethic to be able to pull that off.
It's a little, it's sort of like being an airline and overbooking and then seeing what runs.
Well, that's fabulous. Well, Wennie, you have been terrific today. I'd encourage everybody to go to Wennie's website. It's WennieHuang, which is pronounced Huang.
That's right.
WennieHuang.com, and visit there, and you can find out all about her classes and everything else she has to offer. I'd also like to thank Royal Talons for allowing Wennie to come on. Royal Talons makes the Van Gogh watercolors that she used. And so thank you to Kyle and everybody over at Royal Talons. Wennie, thank you so much.